Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Want to give you guys a quick update on Bitcoin. So, really quick to recap. Going into the weekend, I posted a video talking about some key resistance levels to be watching. We were bouncing. We had to put in a very strong low around that mid to low 9K area. And over the last several days, we were seeing that bounce, and we were nearing a resistance point here around that the mid to high 12K range, which just happens to be the support level that finally broke, that came down, and we bounced right into that. Now, during that bounce, we started to form a bearish rising wedge pattern. Now, I'm spending a lot of these technical terms out here, guys, but just bear with me. We broke that. There's a technical measured move to the downside you can do with these patterns, and I posted that on Twitter here a couple of days ago, saying if we break this trend, we could see that low 10K area, and that was the area that I posted here. And so this was the tweet, and you can see we pretty much broke, and the area I was looking for was at 10.4 down to 10.2 area. We actually undercut that quite a bit. So now that we've hit that, let me go back to the chart here. We had this very strong bottoming candle, this wick that formed right at 10K, and we're starting to bounce here. Now, before I go into what I think will happen next, I just want to point out there's a couple of key things to remember. Some of you guys always ask me, hey, how did you see that, or what were you looking for that led you to believe that was going to be the downside or the upside target? And there's a couple of things that I use that will help you guys when you're looking at these charts. First and foremost, the most important thing is always support and resistance levels. And so what I mean by that is you can see here price hit, price hit, price hit, price hit. All of those areas are support. They're a floor. And whenever you have multiple touches to a specific price zone, once that breaks, it tends to be significant. And we can see that support broke. And what tends to happen is a prior floor now becomes a ceiling. And so you can see on the bounce, we pretty much almost to the penny went straight into that zone before the seller started to show up. And so very important. Now you can have support and resistance that's diagonal as well. It doesn't have to be a horizontal price point. It could be a trend support line both up and down. Now on this pattern, this rising wedge, you can see it really started to narrow. And what happens is when they break, they tend to break to the downside. And so we hit our downside target. Now what am I looking to happen next? Now on the upside, this is a pretty good strong pattern here on the very short term. Okay, I'm talking the 1 hour chart. I'm thinking we're going to bounce a little bit here now. We've hit that downside target, and the bounce that I'm looking for is of these resistance areas, which was a very short term floor here that it was trying to find a low at above 11K. And so into that 11K, 11.1 to be exact, is kind of the area that I'm looking for. Now, if you do a Fibonacci retracement on this pullback for a bounce, and if you go from the top to the bottom, look at that first level, that 382 level just happens to correlate with this resistance point that I'm looking for. So if we start to bounce here, that's the level I'm going to be watching. See how it starts to act going into that 11.1, 11.2K zone, and see if some sellers start showing up here. Now, zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, this is near term. This is the 1 hour chart. Going to the 4 hour chart, we're still looking very bearish since we broke that pattern. But what I'm looking for is a double bottom potentially to form on this 4 hour chart. So let me pull this up so you can see the volume here. So we had that big low right around that 9K area last week during the big selling. Now, we could see two things here. We could see some more downside on this 4 hour after a little bit of a bounce, and then maybe undercut the current lows of today. And if we test or even go lower than this low, that could set up for a very strong, very bullish double bottom pattern. Now, I'm going to be watching for that, because here's what I'd like to see. If we do undercut that first low and it goes lower, I'm going to be watching to see what this RSI does, because if it doesn't go lower and it bottoms out at a higher point, you're going to have a very nice bullish divergence on that RSI with a lower low on the 4 hour, and that would set up for a very good, very strong double bottom. At least for the next couple of days, that would set up a nice rally to retest that support, or excuse me, that resistance going into that 13K. So that's what I'm going to be looking for kind of into the next several days. I'll be watching this here near term. I think we're going to get a bounce. We're very oversold in the very short term, the 1 hours, the 30-minute charts. You look at those, pretty oversold. So I'm thinking we bounce, but that 4-hour chart still not done in my opinion. I think you could see more. The alternative could be we start to set up a little bit of a pattern here where you get a higher low and then maybe a lower high and setting up some sort of a symmetrical equilibrium pattern. So that'd be an alternative case to be looking out for. Now, it's not all been bad. During this little bit of a bounce over the last couple of days, there's been some pretty good alt rallies, some very nice trades that I made over the last few days. A couple of very strong names that I want to point out. First one, EOS. EOS has been very strong, has been forming this very nice pattern, pulling up to the right side, good volume patterns, pausing a little bit near the prior highs. So watching to see what happens here. It could break out and set up another run to the upside. Another one that I've been watching here is ICX. Testing resistance, bounced right into that high, gave us a nice couple of days worth of trading here, and these are pretty decent percents when you catch some of these down breaks or the trends, and that's a quick 20% in a couple of days. Another one was Walton. Walton is setting up here, finally breaking resistance, moving higher. So there's some good bases out there still. There's a lot of stronger names that are kind of bucking the trend, and it's certainly not across the board. A lot of the alts are certainly getting hit with the pullback in BTC over the last day or so. But there's a handful of names that are really bucking this trend that I'm liking here. VeChain is another one that's been pretty strong here. Has had a very big run already though, so feeling a little extended, but nonetheless a strong name. And so it's not across the board, but there is certainly some bright spots in this market during this pullback. So another thing I want to bring up is the futures markets. Now, last Friday was the expiration date of the CBOE futures, much smaller market than the CME. This Friday is the first contract of the CME futures that will expire. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, that's what's driving this price decrease. So let me just be clear. I don't believe the futures market themselves are pulling the price down because they're not big enough yet. However, you got to remember that the same players in the futures market could have been pushing the price of Bitcoin up going into December at the launch of the futures. And I mean, if you look at the timing of it, this thing had a huge run, and the futures launched almost exactly at the top of this run in Bitcoin. And the first contract expires on the 26th. And so that's on the CME. So you got to keep that in mind, that if they were pushing prices up and then they go short on the CME side and then start selling on the Bitcoin exchanges, that could certainly have an influence on the price. That's just a thought, right? A lot of people are suspecting that's the case, and it's certainly very plausible to think that's especially the amount of money that could be used to move this and going on to the futures. So because of that, I'm thinking we got to be cautious going into the 26th when that first contract expires and seeing how the price plays out, because it could get volatile. And so going longer term, how low could this go? Is the low near in Bitcoin? There's a lot of predictions out there. We can go to 8,000, 7,000. Someone's saying 4,000 or 5,000. We're going to retrace 80% off the highs. And so here's the thing. Even if it goes to 5,000 or 7,000, it's not going to happen this week, right? It's not going to be a straight down move. Markets just don't go straight up or straight down. You're going to have counter trend rallies along the way. You're going to have relief rallies, and they can be big. I mean, look at this rally here. This was 40%, right, off the lows. Another one almost 40%. So it doesn't go straight down or straight up. You just got to keep that in mind. So I'm certainly not panic selling or panic buying at any one level. I'm just kind of taking it day by day, watching it play out as it goes. But there's some valid points being made around the different levels that we could see, right? And so kind of taking the big picture view, if you look at the key support levels, the last big base we had was right in this area here, and that's that's that $7,000 to $8,000 mark at the top of that. And so that certainly is would make sense if it pulls back to that point. Taking the very big picture view, right, doing a whole fib retracement on the rally from 1,000 or this low right below that 1,000 up to the top, you can see that that makes sense too, right? That 618 level just happens to be at 79.86 based on that very quick fib. Now, if you go to the low extreme, if we retrace 786, then that's where they're getting the $48,000 to $5,000 number. And that also happens to correlate with a very big, very long base that we broke out of here in the September, October timeframe. And so that's why you're seeing those numbers. Is it possible? It's certainly possible. Anything can happen, and a big retracement like that would really surprise me, to be honest. I mean, 8,000 would not surprise me. It's not really that much lower from here. 5,000 would be quite the surprise for most people. But in any case, even if it went down that far, it wouldn't just go straight down. It would be a kind of an up and down, slow grind down to that point. So the first level I'm going to be really watching, if we continue to sell off this week, it's going to be that 8,000 to maybe 8,500 or so, and seeing if any kind of support starts to show up in the near term. If that happens, you can see that the RSI certainly would start to get oversold at that point. We would be down sub 30 levels, and so that would also set up a pretty good low, and it would correlate with that 4-hour double bottom that I'm looking for on the chart. So for now, I'm just sitting tight. I'm being patient. Aside from some quick trades, I'm just kind of letting this play out, seeing how it goes, and that's what you got to do for now. Now, near term, again, just oversold a little bit. Could see a little bit of a bounce. Looks like we're seeing that already. And watch that key level around 11.1, 11.2. And I'm thinking we're going to be due for a live stream here soon. So depending on how this starts to play out over the next day or so, just look out for that live stream. I'll keep you guys updated. Until next time, take care, everyone.